Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of New York Giants Corner here at Toilets to Titles. I am your host, Joe Knows. My co-host, the other Joe, can't make it tonight. He had something that came up, can't make it tonight. Originally, we were going to discuss our options, our draft and free agency options for the secondary. But since Joe can't make it, I'm putting that off until next week. So I'm going to cover the offensive line, and I'm really just going to cover possible draft picks or names in the draft that I like to look out for in this particular draft, who I like so far, that we can look at that I'd like to bring to you for names to just keep your own eyes on for when it comes to when it comes to the draft and continuing to build our wall, our offensive line for our beloved New York Giants. And so again, I'm just going to cover draft picks that I like, draftees that I like so far. There could be more. We've got still 2.5 months to go until draft night in late April. And by the way, at toiletstotitles.com, our website, we now have a countdown ticker, which I love, until draft day. So speaking of which, speaking of our website, before I get into the content again, I'm gonna talk about names that I like in the upcoming draft for the offensive line to help continue to solidify and build our offensive line. I think we can take a big step forward in 2023. I really, really do. But before I do that, I'm gonna get the bells and whistles out of the way, and I'm just gonna make a few comments about the Super Bowl, which was a fantastic game. Gonna talk about that a little bit first, and we'll get to that in a second. But again, the bells and whistles, please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, give us that 5-star Apple review. We'd really appreciate it. Everything like that helps us out a lot. Where you can find the show, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Facebook, Podbean, and Spotify. And our website, toiletstitles.com, has all of our content. We've got like 15 contributors here, and some of us do videos, some of us do articles, some do both. We are your one-stop shopping for football. If you love football, we got it. We cover the NFL, fantasy, NCAA football, and the NFL draft. You love football, we got it. Everything we produce, wherever we originally release it, it all winds up on our website anyway. And again, that's toiletstotitles.com. And big announcement, we did this a few weeks ago, but I'm still making it as a big announcement. And we have partnered with the CFB Nation. And they're going to be handling most of our college content now. Most of the college content is going to be handled by the CFB Nation, which stands for the College Football Nation. They're going to handle most of the college content, and when those players are drafted, they're pretty much ours. Our bread and butter here at Toilets and Titles is fantasy football, but we do a lot of NFL content, and we also do our own college content as well. But most of that's going to be handled at the CFB Nation, and we also have a Giants program here at Toilets and Titles, New York Giants Corner. That's what you're watching right now, and I hope you tune in regularly. This show will be on every Wednesday, starting at either 8 p.m. or 8:15, usually 8 o'clock, but sometimes running a little late, and it'll be 8:15 p.m. And I just want to give a shout out to our current Patreon supporters. If you can go to patreon.com/toilets and titles, you can learn how you can further support our show. And just a big shout out to our current Patreon supporters. Thank you so much. We appreciate you appreciating us. Thank you so much. And without your support, it would be more difficult to grow our network, our programs, and just give and to provide the amount of content and the quality of content that we do. So we're pumping out a lot of stuff right now, guys. Go over to our website, check out our videos on YouTube. Go over to our website, toiletstotitles.com. We've got player profiles coming out every single day now on players in the upcoming 2023 draft. And just every day we have profiles coming out. Check it out. We have a list as well. At our website on like our favorite players in the draft so far. You'll see we probably have around 55, 60 write-ups so far. We probably have 200 names up there. We've got about 55 to 60 write-ups so far. We've got a long ways to go, but we're filling them every day as we go. So again, toiletstotitles.com, and you will find all those player profiles that we are writing up and putting out there for you to read and enjoy, because we know that you love football as much as we do. And now that the Super Bowl is over, we cannot wait until draft night in late April. So, but real quick before I get into our Giants content, just a few comments about the Super Bowl. What a fantastic Super Bowl! Eagles, Chiefs. Chiefs won, 3-point game. I thought the Eagles were going to run away with this game going into the game. And nothing against the Chiefs, but on paper, and I still see it that way too. On paper, Philadelphia I thought was a much better team than Kansas City. Not that Kansas City was a bad team, not at all. But I thought Philadelphia was just an outstandingly built team and great offensive line, really good young quarterback, good wide receivers, a really good running game, a good tight end, a really dangerous defensive line that had 70 sacks this season, good linebackers, and a really good secondary. So that was such a well-rounded team, the Eagles, and I got to say, I was shocked that they lost this game. I didn't even think it was going to be close, but like I also said going into the game, you can never count out the combination of an elite quarterback and an elite head coach and an elite play caller, which Andy Reid is. And obviously Mahomes is the elite quarterback who's the best quarterback today. And you can never discount that. So what's really impressive about the Chiefs, how they did it, is this is not the same Chiefs team of a few years ago. They do have a good defense. It's not a great defense, but it's a really good defense, and obviously a defense that's good enough to win a Super Bowl because they just did. But it was a good defense. They built it really well. I love the way the Chiefs have drafted over the past like 3 or 4 years. If you go back and look at their draft classes over the past 3 or 4 years, they have found incredible value across the board, especially at linebacker. They took Nick Bolton in the second round. I think they took Leo Chanel, who I think led the team in tackles in the Super Bowl. He had a really good year. They took Leo Chanel, I think, in the third round, if I recall correctly, I believe last year, and absolute playmaker this year. And there's another linebacker I'm not thinking of as well, who they also had like in the second or third round sometime over the past like 2 years. And they rebuilt their offensive line like just pretty much overnight. The last Super Bowl they were in, the previous one the Chiefs were in a few years ago when they lost to the Buccaneers, their offensive line stunk going into that game, but also going into that particular Super Bowl, the Chiefs' offensive line it wasn't good, but it was also they lost like two starters going into that Super Bowl, and Mahomes just got the Chiefs got destroyed by the Buccaneers, who I thought were a better team anyway. The Buccaneers they were a better team, but the Chiefs' offensive line was already bad going into that game, and then it was banged up. It was missing like two starters. Recipe for disaster. Pretty much overnight, Andy Reid and the Chiefs rebuilt that offensive line. And I'm focusing on the offensive line because that's the key, that's the theme of this episode, right? How important it is. Now, they still had Travis Kelsey, right? In which they had Travis Kelsey a few years ago against the Buccaneers. They also had Tyreek Hill. They don't have Tyreek Hill anymore, right? They traded away that elite wide receiver one, who is probably my favorite wide receiver in the game today, and Tyreek Hill. I think he's phenomenal. Um, they traded him away. This was a wide receiving core of like no names. And that's how important the offensive line is. The offensive line gives Mahomes a chance to breathe, and Mahomes doesn't need too much anyway. Obviously, he's great on the run and just improvising, and that's one of the things that makes him so damn dangerous. And but also the running game. The Chiefs had a running game. They had a legitimate running game with Isaiah Pacheco, who they drafted what in the seventh round, I think, this year or sixth round. And here he was having a great Super Bowl. I forgot the amount of yards that he had, but in the fourth quarter, he was basically taking things over there. So that's what an offensive line can do. It's if you build a really good offensive line, uh, you're going to be able to protect your quarterback, give him time, and give your running game a chance, and give you balance in the offense. And that's what the Chiefs did not used to have. And they have it. They had it in this game. They had it for part of this year, but definitely in this game, and it was key. So, hats off to the Chiefs. A few things that's just real quick. I'll wrap it up with the Super Bowl. Guess we do have to talk about Giants, of course, but it really was such a great game. A few things that really were kind of surprising to me was you look at the quarterback stats, you look at Hurts and Mahomes. And Hurts had the stat line that I thought Mahomes would have had, where it was like, over 300 yards passing, and And Mahomes did have three touchdowns, like three passing touchdowns, but he had, Hurts was the one who had like over 300 yards passing and like 70 yards running too. And Mahomes only had like 189 yards passing. I thought, the Eagles would win, and Hurts could be MVP with three touchdowns, only like 189 yards passing, and 70 yards rushing, get two rushing touchdowns, a passing touchdown, which he did. Those are the touchdowns that Hurts got, but I didn't think he was necessarily going to get over 300 yards because I didn't think he'd need to. I thought they'd be able to run on the Chiefs pretty easily, and that didn't happen. So I thought that was interesting. And also, another key thing about the offensive line, in which again is the theme for tonight, because we're talking about offensive line targets in the draft for the Giants, and was that there were no sacks in this game. The Eagles had 70 sacks during the regular season, and they didn't have zero sacks in this game. No interception as well. Also, the Chiefs didn't have any sacks either. They did get a forced fumble at Hurts, which was returned for a touchdown, and you could say that was the deciding factor in the game, really. But that was it. I mean, there were no interceptions by the Chiefs, and they didn't get any sacks either. Those two offensive lines played amazingly, amazing. The Eagles they went into that game with the best offensive line in football. That was a great offensive line. But the Chiefs too, like I said, just a few years ago, they traded for Orlando Brown, the elite left tackle that they got from the Ravens. Then they drafted. I think that same year they drafted their center. Was it Humphrey? I think it might have been Humphrey that they drafted like pick 29 that year or something like that. Or it could have been very early second round. I think it was late first round. And Creed Humphrey, I think is his name, the center. They drafted him late first round, and the Chiefs got, I think Trey Smith is his name. They got him in the sixth round in the 2021 draft, which is probably the deepest offensive line class I can ever remember since I've been following the draft heavily over the past 20 years. I think it was the 2021 draft class was the deepest offensive line class that I can ever remember. And our Giants did not get out of that draft with one frigging pick on the offensive line. I Absolutely disgusting and ridiculous. And Trey Smith was someone who was probably like at worst, really a third round value at worst. And this is a guy who fell. He was a guard who the Chiefs wound up taking in the sixth round that year. A guy who kept falling because there were concerns over apparent blood clots in his lungs. Um, and he didn't have them at the time of the draft, but I think that like it had happened sometime earlier in his college career. I wasn't aware of it being some ongoing problem, but apparently that's why this guy dropped. And I knew anyone who knew about anything about this offensive line and Trey Smith knew that this guy was at worst a third round value. And he was probably going to be a good NFL starter. He had a good chance to be. And he has been. The day he stepped on the field for the Chiefs, I think in 2021, the guy's been a quality guard for the Chiefs. And he was outstanding this past Super Bowl. And the Giants could have had him in even if they didn't want to take him in the third round because they're worried about the medical issue. You could have taken him in the fourth round. And when you get to the fourth round, fifth round, sixth round, that's when you got to be taking your shots with the guys in the upside, regardless of the medical stuff, regardless. And again, this blood clot stuff was something that happened, I think, maybe in high school, that appeared in high school, or maybe early in his college career. It wasn't something that prevented him from playing. It should not have been something that prevented him from being drafted, especially by our Giants. And I realized there were plenty of other teams. Obviously, all the other teams passed on Trey as well, except for the Chiefs in the sixth round. But my point is, by the fourth round, fifth pick, when you're a team that's offensive line hungry like the Giants have been for so many years, over a decade at this point, you've got to take value picks like that. You just have to. And so, but hats off to the Chiefs. They rebuilt that offensive line virtually overnight, and it's one of the better offensive lines in football today. But all right, so Giants offensive line, I like how it performed this year. I'm not sure like what the overall PFF score was. It might have been one of the worst for an NFL offensive line unit. I'm just guessing. But um, the eye test, this offensive line was so much better than it's been in years. It got better and better and better as the season went on. And listen, it had a ceiling. like against the better defensive units, it's not going to look good. But the offensive line did get better and better and better as the season went along, and as players got healthier too, and they were playing together. A big thing as well with this offensive line was Daniel Jones, the growth in his pocket manipulation, his pocket awareness. Is you could see it, and I'm a Daniel Jones fan. I'm a Daniel Jones stan, but I know that his pocket awareness was definitely not a strength of his, throughout his early career up until this year. But his pocket awareness, you could see it, was substantially better than it's ever been. Um, and his ability to manipulate the pocket, buy himself more time, even just scrambling within the pocket or outside the pocket a little bit, it makes the offensive line look better as well because he's not getting sacked, within like 2.5 seconds. He's buying himself more time. That makes the offensive line look better. So this offensive line, our offensive line for the Giants, did improve a lot, in my opinion, this year. And I thought there was some stability there by guys that we weren't expecting, like a Ben Bredesen, who was pretty damn good. And again, I don't know what his PFF score was. I'm just going off the eye test. Ben Bredesen was playing very well early on for the Giants, and he got injured. When he got injured, he was playing at left guard. When he got injured, the play of the Giants' offensive line did deteriorate a little bit. And when he came back, it got better again. And he's playing next to, Andrew Thomas, who he is the one guy I've got nothing to say about because he is playing at an all pro level. Andrew Thomas is one of the top three, at worst, what, maybe top four. He's like top three left tackles in the league. Andrew Thomas, I can't say enough about him. So I'm not here to talk about Andrew Thomas because he's an all pro. Love the guy. He's fantastic. He's the anchor of that offensive line. I'm here to talk about before I go into some of the names that I've got my eyes on in this 2023 draft class. I just want to rehash the rest of our players on the offensive line who I think still have potential to be here next year and who could help this team, this offensive line, take a big jump into being, I'm not going to say an elite offensive line, but an offensive line like a top 10 or top 12 offensive line in the NFL just next year. I believe it can happen. I believe it can happen. And here are some of those names that I think could really help a lot. Evan Neal is key. Like I said, I don't need to talk about Andrew Thomas. He's an All Pro left tackle. We're set. He's the anchor of the line. Evan Neal does worry me a little bit. I've been saying throughout the course of this previous season that I wasn't worried about Evan Neal. The guy's got a lot of great traits. He's a hard worker. Apparently, he studies real hard in terms of like game tape and practice and high quality character. And I do believe that he's going to wind up being a very good right tackle for us, a very good all around right tackle. But I am worried that that we didn't see the jump in his um, the quality of play the second half of the year, like we saw with Andrew Thomas in his rookie. Andrew Thomas's rookie year, the first half of the year was really, really bad. The second half of the year of his rookie season for Andrew Thomas was much better. It was actually really good. And then his second year, he was off to looking really, really good. And then he got injured, missed the rest of the season pretty much. And then this season, obviously, he just took off and was phenomenal, Andrew Thomas, which I wasn't surprised about at all. But like I said, I mean, people still refer to Andrew Thomas's rookie year as like, oh my God, he had a horrible rookie year. That's not really true. He had a horrible beginning to the rookie year. He had a horrible like 6 or 8 games, first 6 or 8 games of his rookie year. The second half of the year, Andrew Thomas was much better. He wasn't elite, but he was much better. Um, and then his second year again, he got off to a really good start. Andrew Thomas is looking great. And then he got injured, and I think he missed like the rest of the year. And then this year he was all pro. I think Neal's got that ability where he can come back next year and just take off. I am worried though, I didn't see enough progression with Neal throughout the course of the season. He was getting better. He was getting better. I don't want to say there wasn't any progress. He was getting better as the season went along. And then he got injured. He missed a few games. And when he came back, it seemed like he had to like, kickstart, jumpstart again, Evan Neal. And then he was playing again. He was playing a little better again by the end of the season. But the dude is a seventh round pick. He plays right tackle. It's a key position. He's got the ability to wind up being an elite right tackle. He needs to take a big jump in this upcoming season. I am again. So my worry is I still believe in Neal, but my worry is that he. My worry is that that we didn't see enough progression for him from him this year. That does worry me. That does. And so that's why I'm thinking that I'm open to the Giants actually drafting another right tackle this year to compete with Neal, and that whoever basically loses that competition, say in spring train and in summer camp, in preseason games, one guy's going to win. He's going to play right tackle. The other guy's getting busted over to guard. Because I'm not messing around with this offensive line anymore. I'm not spending money on crappy free agents or high end money on high end free agents. That's not how you build an offensive line. You can bring in free agents when you already have a good offensive line and you've got one hole. Yeah, you can do that. You can do that. But we have quite a few holes that still need to get settled. That's why I don't want to spend too much money on free agent offensive linemen. You want to add a little depth, that's something else, not starters. We spent some money on Gleniski last year. He wasn't all that great this year. He was okay. He was not all that great. And same thing with Feliciano. Feliciano was not a very good center. He was okay. He was okay, but but nothing great. We need to draft and build that offensive lineup. But so Neal is key to me because, like I said, if the Giants want to draft another tackle and then let those two guys, Neal and the other tackle, battle it out for the right tackle position, and then whoever loses can play right guard, I'm cool with that because I want to get this offensive line once and for all situated correctly. But I'm really optimistic about the guys who could play the guard position, the left guard position. Josh Izudu, who was drafted last year in the third round, that dude's a road grader. He is really strong. I saw him bury in quite a few games, and a Baltimore Ravens game in particular, I believe I remember. He's just driving opponents into the ground, and he's a very strong guy. Once he gets his hands on you, you're done. He's awesome in the run game, Josh Izudu. Awesome in the run game, and he's got a lot of high upside. He was, somewhat raw coming out of college, coming out of UNC, but a lot of upside. And his weakness is in pass protection, but he's got really good speed, really good feet, and Azudu is known to be a very smart and hard worker. I think this guy can take a big leap next year. Now, I do want to see competition there. I don't just want to give it to him. Ben Bredesen actually played pretty well for the Giants this year. So I was encouraged by him. I do want more upside from my left guard, and I think Azudu gives that to you. You also have Shane Lemieux, who apparently was looking the best out of these guards in the preseason last year, and then he got injured. I think originally it was turf toe, and then it wound up being something else. It's a shame because I like Lemieux a lot. He's another road grader in the offensive line. If you remember, 2 years ago as a rookie, fifth round pick, he came in. Our left guard at the time went down, who I forgot who it was, with an injury, and Lemieux had to come in as a starter for the rest of the season. He was not good in pass protection, but he was excellent in the run game. And then again, this previous camp in preseason in 2022, Lemieux was looking really good, and it looked like he was going to be the starting left guard. He was actually looking good in pass protection. And again, is known as another high IQ football player, and he plays with a mean streak. The Zudu plays with a mean streak. Lemieux plays with a mean streak. And another guy we're going to talk about is Gates. I love Gates. We all love Gates. I think he should. I think he really should be back here with the Giants. The Giants should keep him, and I'm fine with him starting at center. I'd like to see an upgrade there, but I also think he can do worse than Gates, and I think Gates is better than Feliciano. And I want to see Gates either start at center or, if the Giants draft a center this year, and I don't have a problem with that, if they want to draft a guy to start at center, you could still have Gates as a backup at multiple positions. Gates has so much. If he's not starting at center, Gates has a lot of value uh, for a depth piece. The guy can play center. He can play right guard because he has in the past. Like I said, he can play center because he started at center for us. He can play right guard. He started in early on in his career for us. He started at right guard a little bit. He played a little right guard, and he also started right tackle for us a little bit. This is going back like 3 years ago, like his first year, and so Gates has value as a backup, and he's just got a great attitude. This is a guy who takes nobody's crap. I remember he went like head to head with Aaron Donald, and Aaron Donald wound up like Aaron Donald's an idiot. Like wound up poking him in the eyes through the grill of his mask and of his helmet. And but I like Gates a lot. He's a real dude, and this is a guy you want on your team. You want Gates on your team. He's like a captain. I don't remember if he actually was a captain this year, but he's like captain material. I really like Gates a lot. You want to keep this guy. If he's not going to be starting at center, you want to at least keep him as depth. Please keep Gates. The guy is very valuable. So again, I went over Neal. Neal's important. Neal's important. But I'm not necessarily ready to put all my eggs in the Neal basket anymore because I want to get this offensive line situated. And again, we could draft off another offensive tackle if the front office wants to do that. I don't blame them. Let the young offensive tackle and Neal battle it out for right tackle, and then the loser of that battle can go to right guard. Okay, but I think we've got some really good options here in house at left guard with Azudu, Bredesen, and Lemieux. And then at center, if you want to draft a center and let him battle it out with Gates, and then if Gates loses, you can just keep him as a depth piece. Great. I think this team, with a draft pick or two this year on the offensive line, can make a monumental jump next year, next season in 2023. Let's start talking about some of the names that I've got my eyes on, that I have my eyes on in the 2023 draft. I'm going to start off with someone. Okay, now this person's not an offensive lineman, but he can be like a sixth offensive lineman. All right, he's not an offensive lineman, but he can be like a sixth offensive lineman. This dude's a road grader, and he's not a receiver, but he can also help you in the receiving game as a safety valve. This is one of the most intriguing players in this draft. I love this dude, and I can actually see him going back, being drafted at the end of the first round because of how unique this man is. He'll probably wind up going in the second round, I think. But if the Giants took this guy, I'm not saying they should take him at 25, but I love this guy so much, and he could actually help the offensive lineman as being almost the sixth offensive lineman out there. And that is, you got to watch this guy's video. That is tight end Darnell Washington out of Georgia. I'm going to get to the real offensive lineman in a little bit, but I had to do this guy first because he's really the only tight end I'm going to talk about in these video series. We have Daniel Bellinger, who I loved a lot. He was awesome. I wouldn't be shocked if we drafted another tight end in, maybe in like fourth, fifth round this year. I wouldn't be shocked if we do. But just do me a favor, watch some game videos, game tape on Darnell Washington out of Georgia. This dude he's huge. Let me bring up his real quick. Let me bring up Darnell Washington's size and measurements. He's 6'7", 265 pounds. You got to watch this guy blocking. I mean, in the running game, he's the definition of a road grader, and he's really good in pass protection as well. You got to see him go out for passes. He actually has really good hands, Darnell Washington, and he's fun to watch. Like he's got decent, like he's not fast, but he actually has a pretty good motor. He reminds me of Brandon Jacobs when he runs. Whenever Brandon Jacobs ran, he wasn't like fast. He wasn't fast, but reminded me of a Cadillac. Brandon Jacobs did that deceptively fast, kind of like a smooth accelerator. And Darnell Washington is just like that. And you got to see him. He is a tank. This guy is almost impossible to bring down, by one defenseman alone, by one safety or one cornerback alone or one linebacker alone. It usually takes like two guys to bring him down. And I've seen him hurdle guys. I've seen him hurdle linebackers who were going for the low tackle. Darnell Washington's athleticism is so damn impressive. Please watch this guy. But I had to bring him up. He's the only tight end in this entire draft class I even care about talking about. He is so damn unique. And I got to say, if the Giants took him with the 25th pick, or if he happened to fall in the second round, which I don't think it would happen, and they drafted him, I'd be super psyched because, like I said, this guy can help the offensive line. He's an excellent blocker both ways. Um, and like I said, he's a pretty good receiver. Georgia didn't use him. They have another outstanding tight end in Brock Bowers, who's going to be. I think he's probably coming out in the 24 draft class. He's a top 15 pick easy. He's one of the best tight ends I've ever seen in Brock Bowers of Georgia. But Darnell Washington, I'm telling you, man, he's like a sixth offensive lineman out there. I just love that guy. I had to lead off with him. Okay, let's get to the real offensive lineman. Here are some tackles, okay? And this is what I was talking about with Evan Neal. I'm concerned about Evan Neal. I haven't given up on Evan Neal, but I'm also not putting my eggs in the Evan Neal basket. I want things solidified at right tackle. That's why I'm looking at Peter Skoronski and Cody Mauch. Skoronski's out of Northwestern. Cody Mauch out of North Dakota State. What I like about both of these guys is that they're both currently tackles in college. Skoronski is heavily expected to go somewhere in the first round, probably somewhere like in the second half. I would assume second half of the first round, most likely. Cody Mauch is probably going to be a second round pick. He could sneak into the back end of the first round. He could. This guy, Cody Mauch, was really good at Senior Bowl. He's also known as kind of like the toothless wonder because he's missing like his two front teeth like an old school hockey player. Cody Mauch is really funny, but Cody Mauch was down at Senior Bowl, performed very, very well. But I would say there are concerns with both of these guys in terms of their arm length. That's why I have them down as, listen, they're tackles, but what I like is that if the Giants were to draft one of these guys, say either Skoronski in the first round or Cody Mauch in the second round, is that they can compete with Evan Neal for the right tackle position if the Giants want to go that route. However, they probably both of them would probably be better at right guard anyway. But say they actually beat Evan Neal out at right guard. Say it's substantially better. Say they both walk on and they're substantially better than Evan Neal at right tackle. Then you know what? Evan Neal can go to right tackle, and either Skoronski or Mauch can start at right tackle. But what I love about it is if you get one of these guys, and say I would assume Evan Neal would win the right tackle position, but you've got two guys here who can go to right guard, and one of them, you draft one of them, can go to right guard, and you know what? They can be the swing tackle as well. And I forgot to mention Matt Pert as well, who 99% of the Giants fans out there have given up on Matt Pert, offensive tackle. I have not. I have not given up on Matt Pert. I do think that guy can be, I'm not saying a starting right tackle. I think that guy could be a really good swing tackle depth piece for the Giants going forward. Unfortunately, he's dealt with a lot of injuries, and he dealt with our shitty coaching staff under Joe Judge for 2 years. But he's also dealt with injuries as well. But I have not forgotten about, and I have not given up on Matt Pert. I'm not saying as a starting tackle, but as a swing tackle. However, again, my point why I'm bringing up tackles, even though you probably say, "Hey, Joe, we've got Andrew Thomas, we have Evan Neal, we don't need a starting right tackle." You know, I like these guys. I think either of these guys could be the starting right guard, and they can be swing tackles. However, like I said, you want to bring someone to compete with Evan Neal. I'm not sure how the Giants front office feels about Evan Neal right now. You could bring someone in to compete against Evan Neal, and if Evan Neal loses that battle, you can go to right guard. I'm sure he'd do a really good job at right guard. So I'm just trying to cover. I'm trying to cover ourselves here at right tackle because it does concern me, and I do. We need to get this offensive line situated. I think we're really damn close to doing that, to being like a top 10 unit in the NFL. I think we can make a huge jump next year, and that would just help out the entire offensive game, the receiving game and the running game. And you look at the Chiefs, like, listen, I know it's Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid we're talking about here. I get that, but still, the offensive line for Kansas City was awesome. They don't have Tyreek Hill. They've got a bunch of like number two wide receivers. Juju Smith-Schuster, Kadarius Toney, who, listen, if that guy stays healthy, I love him. If the guy stays healthy, his ceiling is through the roof. But it's not like he's been healthy this year, so he's can't really say he's more than a wide receiver two right now. And McCole Hardman and some of these other guys, they're all wide receiver two at best, at Kansas City, but they had the offensive line. Obviously, they've got the best quarterback of his generation, Patrick Mahomes, but they had an offensive line that gave the quarterback time and also helped provide for a running game in Isaiah Pacheco. So it's key. We need to build up this offensive line. Build up the offensive line. Even the wide receivers we currently have right now would look even better. This passing game we have right now would look even better when you've got a better offensive line. It's got to get fixed this year. Okay, so let's move on to like just flat out guards. I brought up the first two names I talked about were Skoronski and Mauch, who are basically tackles in college and could be successful tackles in the NFL, but would probably be guards. But I like these guys a lot in that they could be tackles in the NFL, but if not, they'll probably be really good guards in the NFL. But now I'm going to focus on just regular old guards, straight up guards, and then we're going to lead off with Ocyrus Torrance. This guy is a monster. Violent, violent monster, road grader. This guy's a fighter in the trenches. You love this guy. If he's there at 25 for the Giants in the first round, this guy is first round value. Maybe he could wind up slipping to the top end of the top few picks in the second round. That could happen. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Ocyrus Torrance is going to go somewhere in the first round. I think probably somewhere in the teens in the first round. But if he happens to fall to the Giants and the Giants want to take him, I can't blame him. This guy is awesome. You could put this guy, like I said, I like our options at left guard. I want to see Azudu, Bredesen, and Lemieux battle it out. At right guard, I would have no problem having Torrance in there. He is a violent player. This guy, he was at Senior Bowl. He was the best offensive lineman in Senior Bowl. I wasn't at Senior Bowl myself. But we had a team here at Toilets and Titles. We had a team of like 5 guys, Toilets and Titles and the CFB Nation, that was at Senior Bowl, and they all loved Ocyrus Torrance. And there are reports, that I read from other sites as well, and videos that I listened to that I watched from some of the Giants content creators that I love a lot, like Talking Giants. They were down there as well. They loved Ocyrus Torrance. This is the real deal. This guy, I love this guy. And again, he's a violent banger at the guard position. You want this guy on your team. You want him. And I could just imagine, like Azudu's the same way. Like he's a violent player at left guard. Can you imagine having him at left guard, Torrance at right guard, Andrew Thomas at left tackle, and Evan Neal at right tackle, like a fully realized Evan Neal. And Evan Neal, who's next year, hopefully, starts hitting his ceiling or getting close to it and looking really good. Can you imagine those 4 guys? They're like all of them are really good in the run game. They're all excellent in the run game. So that would be phenomenal. Just that if Evan Neal can be Evan Neal next year, and if Izudu, progresses next year like he should, uh, and you've got Andrew Thomas at left tackle, having Ocyrus Torrance, man, I can't complain about that at all. I do have to say though, I don't like the idea of spending so many first round picks on the offensive line. Only I think the offensive line is extremely important, but you got to be able to get value out of third, fourth, fifth round, sixth round picks on the interior offensive line. You can't spend so much draft capital on the offensive line. You should be able to. Most teams can, identify interior offensive linemen in the fourth round, fifth round, third round, and develop them into being really good starters. Maybe not Pro Bowlers, some of them certainly do, but at least really good quality starters. And the Giants have lacked that ability for so long, and hopefully Azudu will break that curse. And as a third round pick, hopefully he does, become a really good quality starting left guard for us. But man, the idea of putting Ocyrus Torrance at right guard for us makes me drool. Another guy I want to talk about, another guard, is Jarrett Patterson. I'd say he's a little better in pass protection than Ocyrus Torrance. Doesn't play as violently, but Notre Dame is really good at producing offensive linemen, and Jarrett Patterson is another one. He's a well-rounded, high IQ guard out of Notre Dame. Really good. If you happen to, this guy's a second round value in my mind as well. We happen to get this guy in the second round, be very happy. He'd be, I think we're picking at like number 59 in the second round. Perfect value. He might even go before that, but I like this guy a lot. Again, he's from Notre Dame. Notre Dame knows how to produce offensive linemen, especially interior offensive linemen. They know what they're doing. So whenever you see a name, an offensive lineman coming out of Notre Dame, is the same thing as like whenever a wide receiver is coming out of LSU, or a defensive back is coming out of LSU. Take notice, because these programs know how to produce these specific positions. They know how to produce players from these specific positions. I like Jarrett Patterson a lot. He's a very finished, polished, complete product, high IQ. I like Torrance more, but again, I'd love to see us wait to for the second round. I think there's really good value there in the second round. Jarrett Patterson, I have my eye on. I like him a lot. Andrew Vorhees is another high IQ polished product out of USC. He would probably be more of a third round pick. But I'm trying to give options here. Listen, there's quite a few good offensive linemen in this draft. I don't think it's as top heavy, this offensive line draft, as the previous two, but it's good. It's got a lot of good depth. I think Voorhees could be a good third round value, maybe back end of the second round, but more of like a third round value. I like him a lot. He's out of USC, another very much in the same mold of Jarrett Patterson. Voorhees has got very good feet, very good speed for an offensive lineman for a guard, and very high IQ. And I like this guy a lot. I think he'd be a good addition to the team if we were to go guard in the second or third round, back into the second round, and or the third round. Voorhees would be a very good name. So these are guys that I like a lot. And again, there's other names out there, first round, second round, third round, fourth round, and beyond. But these are guys that I like, and there's only so many that I can focus on. Otherwise, this episode's going to go on forever and ever. Okay, so let's move on to those are the guards. These are the guards that I like a lot. So again, just to recap, the tackles who I could see us, drafting as tackles, but drafting as guards. Actually, the tackles in NCAA, but I could see these guys, the Giants, possibly drafting these guys, these two tackles to play guard for us, to play right guard for us, and to act as swing tackles. Again, Skoronski out of Northwestern and Mauch out of North Dakota State. You got to see Mauch. He's so funny. Guy's missing again. He's missing his two front teeth. And guard, just straight up guards. Ocyrus Torrance, Florida, first round value. Jarrett Patterson, Notre Dame, second round value. Andrew Vorhees out of USC, third round value. Again, there are other guards out there that are good too, but these are the ones that I like the most. I'm trying to provide some picks, like one pick for each of the early three rounds. Let's move on to center. And I think if we're going to draft someone in the this year, if we were going to draft one position on the offensive line this year, I have a feeling it would be center. As much as I love Nick Gates, I think it'll be center. I still want to keep Nick Gates again because he's versatile. Um, Gates is versatile, and his versatility is very very important. Um, John Michael Schmitz, Minnesota. Probably the best center in this draft, the most complete. Again, high football IQ, good foot movement. Um, you're really not going to beat him to a spot on the offensive line. He's very, very quick with his feet. I like this guy a lot. He anchors very well. Um, he's probably the best center in this draft. I don't think he's more than a second round pick, and I would love that. I'd love if we could take a cornerback or a linebacker or even a wide receiver in the first round, and then get a center in the second round. John Michael Schmitz, I think, in my opinion, is probably the best center in this draft out of Minnesota. I like him a lot. Another guy I like a lot, Ricky Stromberg out of Arkansas. Arkansas also develops very good offensive linemen. Stromberg is not as polished as Schmitz, but he's good and he's very, very strong. Another guy who anchors very, very well in the passing game. Once this guy anchors in pass protection, it's very, very hard. It's not easy to move him back. You'll be moving him back if you do very, very slowly. In the running game, he pushes the pocket. I like Ricky Stromberg a lot, and I think he's going to be I think he could be had in the third round, probably a second round pick, but I think he'll be there for us in the second round. He may even be there in the third round. I don't think so, but if the Giants took Stromberg at second in the second round, be happy. I think we'd get really good fair value in the second round. I think this guy would be our day one starter this upcoming season. And the last pick here at center is oh, I'm sorry, I've got two more. Alex Forsyth out of Oregon, who I like a lot. Again, he's a very good athletic center. I'd say he's more of like a third or fourth round pick. And the same thing with Joe Pittman. I'll talk about both of them together. Wisconsin's also good at producing offensive linemen. Wisconsin, so like Notre Dame, and Iowa too. Iowa is the same, and Michigan, but Wisconsin and Notre Dame are like my two favorite offensive line producing schools. Um, Joe Tippmann is a very good athletic center, uh, polished player. I believe junior this year. He 3 years of college, and he's been very consistent player throughout his entire college career. Wisconsin's known for relying on their running game, so their offensive linemen are usually very good in the running game, and that's what Wisconsin's known for. They're not really known for their passing game and their aerial attack, and so Tippmann is very adept at the running game, and I know that this coaching staff seems to likes to have they like to have a balanced offense. in both passing and the rushing game. So in the running game. So Joe Tippmann I like a lot. I think he'd be really good value in the fourth round, possibly third round, but third or fourth round, you're happy. And again, another name, Alex Forsythe out of Oregon, another polished center. I like him a lot, and he could be like a third round, fourth round pick, one of those two guys. If we were to take like wide receiver in the first round and say linebacker or cornerback or D line in the second round, if in the third round or the fourth round, if we got Alex Forsythe out of Oregon or Joe Tippmann out of Wisconsin, be happy because these are good players. And again, even Forsythe and Tippmann, I think they'd step on onto the field in 2023, day one starters at center. So these are the centers like a lot. And I do think if there was just one position, again, one position that Joe Shane was going to draft for the offensive line this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if he doubles down, if he goes like, center and guard. I wouldn't be surprised at all. But I think if there's one position, I think it's probably going to be center. And I think you can get good players, fair value in each of like rounds 2, 3, and 4. Maybe Schmitz could go in the back end of the first round. I don't think so. He could go. John Michael Schmitz of Minnesota could go at center. Could go in the back end of the first round. I don't think so. I think he's more of a second round value. But like I said, if you were just to pick one offensive lineman in this draft, John Michael Schmitz at center in the second round would be really good fair value. Ricky Stromberg in the back end of the second round or back end of the third round, I think is really fair value there. And then back end of the third round or back end of the fourth round. Actually, we have two third picks, but two third round picks, but still back end of the third round, back end of the fourth round. Alex Forsythe or Joe Tippmann, fair value in either third or fourth round, fair value. And I think any of these guys would be day one starters, even over Nick Gates. As much as I love Nick Gates, I think they'd be day one starters in the 2023 season over Nick Gates. But still, I want to keep Nick Gates. Backup center, backup guard, backup right tackle. I love the dude. He's a leader. He's a captain. So, and that is it. I got to delete that one right there. So that's it, my friends. So I covered my favorite players to keep an eye on. I think for first, second, third, and fourth round value for us at tackle, guard, and just straight up guards and center. And I even threw a tight end in there. My favorite tight end, Darnell Washington. I had to. I love the guy. You got to watch him. He's like a sixth offensive lineman. You got to watch videotapes. You got to watch game video on Darnell Washington out of Georgia. Please do. Trust me. You'll love it. You won't be happy. I'm not misleading you. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much it for the show. Before I go, I just want to drop the Twitter handles for me and all my compadres here at both Toilets to Titles and the CFB Nation. Please give us all a follow. We really appreciate it. And again, CFB Nation's pretty much taking over all of our college content, and we're going to be handling here at Toilets to Titles mostly NFL and fantasy content. And please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, hit that bell, give us that 5-star Apple review because you love us and we deserve it. Anyway, everyone, I'm out of here. Have a good night. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you next Wednesday at either 8 o'clock or 8:15. And my co-host, the other Joe, should be here that time, and I think we'll be covering the secondary. We're going to be covering options in both free agency and the draft when it comes to cornerbacks and safeties. I'll catch you later, everyone. Take care. Hope you enjoyed the video. Go Giants. I'll see you next week.